Michaela Vernava for NESN.com. I'm joined today by Jon Campbell, sports analyst for OddsShark. And Jon, crazy first couple of rounds of the NCAA Tournament. March Madness certainly lived up to its name like crazy. What did you think of this weekend?
It was amazing. I mean, a lot of talk of parity coming into this thing, and then we certainly saw that with the upsets, especially in the first round, and really living up to the madness. Last night we had, some of the most incredible games we've ever seen. So it's just been an unbelievable tournament so far.
Definitely, we saw that parity play out. Now, how do those upsets affect futures?
Yeah, they do a little bit. I mean, ultimately, there were some big upsets over the first weekend, but ultimately, we've got a lot of favorites moving on into the next round, into the Sweet 16. And I talked about in interviews last week that the people who usually win your brackets in the office pools are the ones who have the Final Four right, and that's probably what we're going to see here again. So we haven't seen huge moves in futures, but we have seen a few. Iowa State was 60-1, and they're down to 28-1. That's one of the bigger moves. Gonzaga's one of the biggest ones as well. They were 80-1, and now they're down to 22-1. I think odds makers were impressed with them. And another huge one was Wisconsin. They were 100-1 coming into the tournament, and are now about 33-1. So they're also one that odds makers are and sportsbooks are a little worried about, because they got a lot of action on them after last year's NCAA tournament performance. So they're a little disappointed to see them move on, and they're a little nervous as Wisconsin continues to roll here.
Now, as you just said that if you're going to win your office pool, a lot of the time it's coming down to if you chosen the Final Four correctly. But with all the upsets, I know that I certainly have had a couple of my Final Four teams knocked out. Can you hold on to any hope if you have two or three of the correct teams in the Final Four?
Well, this might be a year where that actually happens, and I'm the same. I had Michigan State winning it all in my bracket, but my other three are still alive, and I think with so many people who would have taken Michigan State going to the Final Four, which was also, along with Kansas, the most popular futures bet before the tournament, there might be a chance here, but you'll need three of those four, I would say, along with an upset or two from the first round, but there's still hope.
All right, well, that parity we discussed heading into the Sweet 16 is certainly still alive. I think it's kind of tough to predict some of these games. So I want to get into a region-by-region breakdown of the upcoming matches. And starting with the Midwest, I'm curious what you think about the Gonzaga-Syracuse game that's coming up. That one's a little tough to call.
Yeah, it is. Gonzaga opened as a 4.5-point favorite here, and some might be surprised to see Tennessee Syracuse here. But the Orange really got the best draw of any team left in the Sweet 16, I feel. They beat a stumbling Dayton team in round one, and then they got to play 15-seed Tennessee State in round two after they upset Michigan State. So they got a great draw. Gonzaga is a team that I had identified in an article last week as this year's Cinderella based on criteria the NCAA set. And a Cinderella is a 9 seed or lower to advance to the Elite Eight. So I really kind of expected them to be pretty good, and we saw with their futures drop in odds that a lot of people are starting to believe in them. So a real good matchup here.
And then looking over at number 1 seed Virginia versus 4 seed Iowa State, I think I'd be safe to put my money on Virginia in this one.
Well, they opened as a 5-point favorite, and I would say yes. Virginia's been one of these really undervalued teams all year because they play great defense and they don't get a lot of national TV time, but they're a fantastic team. I really think they're the best defense in the nation. They allow fewer than 60 points per game, and it's a classic matchup of offense versus defense a little bit. Iowa State scores 82 points a game this season, and they're really going to need to hit every chance they get, I think, to beat Virginia, and I think Virginia is a better team here.
And, Jon, looking over at the East region now, 6 seed Notre Dame versus 7 seed Wisconsin. This is one that I'm also torn on. What are you seeing in this matchup?
Yeah, it makes sense that you're torn because the spread is only 1. Notre Dame opened as a 1-point favorite, and both these teams just squeaked out wins in their round 2 games on late moment shots. So they're both a little bit lucky to be here. Notre Dame won, but it failed to cover by a half point over SFA. And that's kind of a familiar story for these guys. Over the last 20 years, they actually have the worst against the spread winning percentage in the tournament, our records show. And they're a big under team. They're also the biggest under team in the tournament over that span. So Notre Dame money always comes in for books no matter what. So it's not a surprise that they're favored. You could probably put the line the other way. Wisconsin favored by 1 too.
And then 1 seed North Carolina versus 5 seed Indiana. This is one where I'm leaning toward North Carolina, but I can't say I'm 100% confident. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, you know your stuff. These are the top 2 scoring teams left in the tournament, and I think it's tighter than this spread indicates. North Carolina is favored by 5.5 in this one, and this is one of those ones where both teams score so much that it could come down to the last team with the ball wins the game. So that said, odds makers often inflate totals a little too much for North Carolina games, and 14 of their last 19 games went under the total. So you've got the Big Ten regular season champ against the best team in the best conference. This could end up being the best matchup in the Sweet 16.
Should be a good one. And turning over, looking at the West, Texas A&M Aggies. What a game against Northern Iowa to advance to the Sweet 16, and they're the number 3 seed taking on 2 seed Oklahoma. I'm not really sure who to go with in this matchup.
Yeah, this is another really tight spread. We've got Oklahoma favored by just 1.5 over A&M, 2 former conference rivals. This should be another really good one. And you said it, A&M's game against Northern Iowa last night pretty much broke the internet, and they came back from 12-point deficit with 44 seconds to go. It's just it's almost inexplicable, and so that could be a factor here where they're going to have to overcome the emotions from that game. And UNI won on a half-court buzzer beater in their round 1 game, and we might have seen an emotional letdown a little bit at the end of that game. So that's going to be an interesting factor here. Oklahoma has Buddy Hield, who's probably going to be the player of the year in college hoops this year, and I'm expecting him to be a huge factor, of course, in this game too.
And then 1 seed Oregon versus 4 seed Duke. Now, I am a little bit biased. I will admit I want to see Duke win this one because I have them winning the whole tournament. It was just a gut feeling I went with from the beginning. I did pick them to win last year, and I'm hoping they can pull through for me again this year. What are you seeing in this matchup?
Yeah, well, great call last year, and some people had them going out early this year, but here they are, and they're 2-point underdogs going into this matchup against Oregon. They're 2 similar style teams, but Oregon is the hotter team right now after winning the Pac-12 tournament and claiming the number 1 seed in the West here. I think we can expect this one to be a high-scoring matchup. Both teams average around 80 points per game, but Duke's defense has just completely fallen apart lately, and that's why Oregon's slightly favored here. Duke's allowing almost 80 points per game over its last 5 games, and they really have to clean that up if they want to move on to the Elite 8.
And then turning our attention to down south, number 2 seed Villanova versus 3 seed Miami. This is another one that I'm just stumped on.
Yeah, I think this will be one of the best matchups as well that we see in the Sweet 16. And Nova's favored by 4.5 here. They absolutely dominated Iowa in what was probably the most impressive beatdown in round 1 here. These 2 teams match up really well statistically, but I think there are kind of 2 keys here that are ultimately going to decide this one, and that's Villanova's the much hotter 3-point shooting team right now. They shot over 46% in each of their first 2 games, and they're just so aggressive on steals that they can really turn into points in a hurry, and that just throws teams off. So I think those will be the 2 difference makers in this one.
And then 5 seed Maryland taking on 1 seed Kansas, who, as you said all along, the heavy favorite to win the entire tournament. And they've, of course, knocked off their first 2 opponents by double digits. Is it safe to go with them in this matchup, you think?
Yeah, I really think so. I think the spread's a little bit too low, and it's the highest spread of all the Sweet 16 games. Kansas is favored by 7 here. They won 14 of their last 15 games, and they're 10-3-2 against the spread in those games. So they're absolutely on fire here, and are going to be really tough. They're also 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 games on neutral court, and that's what I think will be a huge problem for Maryland. Maryland was just much better on their home court this year, and they score about 7 fewer points per game on neutral court than they do overall. I just think Kansas is the much more talented team here, and there's a reason why they're favored. So yeah, that's what I think we'll see in this one.
Jon, you're always such a great wealth of information. I really appreciate all the advice. Are there any other tips that you can leave us with heading even deeper into all of this madness?
Wow, well, it's been an incredible tournament so far. For me, I like good defense and teams that can shoot the 3. So don't be surprised. I had Nova moving on to the Final Four, and they're a team I really like. But other than that, I mean, it's tough to beat. The one thing I would say is if you've won money in the first round, in the first 2 rounds here so far, you might want to sit back and just be a fan for the rest of it, because the lines have been really sharp, and I only see them getting sharper. It's going to be tough to win money as you go.
Yeah, it's really getting crazy. And of the games coming up in the next round, if there was going to be a big upset, which do you think it would be?
Well, we've got mostly favorites left, so tough for upsets. I think Gonzaga might be the team. I mean, one double-digit seed's definitely moving on there, and I picked them as the Cinderella based on the statistics the NCAA set out. So they might be the team that surprises some and moves on.
All right, Jon, I really appreciate you talking with us today. I'm really excited for the rest of the tournament. We will be talking with you again next Monday, and I want to encourage everyone to head over to OddsShark.com. I always say that wrong. Everyone head over to OddsShark.com for all their sports betting advice and more tips from Jon Campbell. Jon, thanks so much again.
Thanks, Michaela. Lots of fun, and look forward to next week.